All right, I want to bring in Geoffrey Thomas, who's an aviation analyst, and he joins me now from Perth, Australia. Good to see you again. So listen, we've shown several angles of video from this crash. Certainly the speed and the angle of descent of this plane are really notable here. What strikes you when you see the videos?
Look, very dramatic and very terrifying immediate reaction, Kim. I immediately think catastrophic failure of some kind, a control issue, maybe of some kind. Why? Of course, we just simply don't know. The Lear aircraft is a great airplane. It's been around for a long time, but continually updated, well maintained. If it's well maintained, it's a great airplane. There's over 2,000 of this particular type of aircraft flying around the world. They're supported by Bombardier, who bought the company in 1990. They have an extensive number of support centres around the world, including in the United States. So yeah, it's very well made. It's very well supported by Bombardier. If it's looked after and maintained properly, it's a great airplane. And this one was 43 years old, but that doesn't really mean a lot as long as it's looked after.
Yeah. So we don't know the cause, obviously, but one thing that I've been hearing from some experts when they looked at the footage and when you consider the plane that we're talking about here, a term I heard a couple of times was weight balance stall. Is that something that you've heard of before that could be a contributory factor here?
Certainly, if the aircraft is not in trim, and then that's weight and balance. So it's got to be as you suggest, weight and balance has to be right for the trim to be right. However, I would have thought if the aircraft was out of balance, having done this sort of work myself many years ago, then the problem would have manifested itself earlier than it was in the air for I think 2 or 3 minutes or something like that. It went about 3 miles, I think. On takeoff, they would have had problems straight away if the aircraft was not trimmed properly. It is not an aircraft that carries cargo. It's got passengers who sit in the appropriate seats, 4 passengers, 2 crew. You know, that sort of issue comes to play, you know, with a larger airplane, possibly with cargo loaded incorrectly. Instead of being put in the rear holds, it's put in the front hold. And when the pilot comes to try and take off, the aircraft is not rotating, it's not taking off because you've got too much weight in the nose. That's the sort of thing that typically happens, but of course it can happen with smaller aircraft, of course. But I would have thought this would have happened a little earlier in the flight than this situation.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah. I'm looking at the footage there, and you see just how violent and how catastrophic that crash was. In terms of trying to find answers here, how hard will it be, especially if there is no black box, because this type of plane isn't required to carry one?
Look, indeed, the NTSB, which I must say, they've been in the news a lot lately, they're one of the best crash investigators in the world. No question about it. They're really good at what they do. They'll be looking at things like control. I think they'll be looking at things like control surfaces. There's various mechanics that go that make up the control surfaces that give you the pitch up and down. That'll be in the tail. So they'll be looking at those. They'll be looking for wear or damage. Maybe something wasn't put back properly. Those sorts of things, which would affect the control of the aircraft significantly. They will comb the wreckage. And this is why sometimes these investigations, Kim, take 2 or 3 years, because they've got to go analyse every single part of this aircraft. And your earlier commentator on the ground there was talking about, you know, whatever you do, don't touch anything. Let the investigation team or the police come and pick that piece up, because that little piece might be the vital missing clue that we need to solve this terrible tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly, solving it will take time, as you say. Geoffrey Thomas, really appreciate having you on again.
Pleasure.